Hey everyone, how you doing? This is Dan and Chris. Welcome to A Father's Love Healing Through Heartache. We're glad to be back. It's been a couple weeks. We took a little break for the holiday season, and we're back at it, and we're ready to dive into some new topics and hopefully help some people out. Dan, how you been doing?
Hey, Chris, same old. Just plugging along and enjoying the Christmas break, so that's always good.
Yeah, I love the break. It's been awesome. I haven't slept. To be honest, I feel like I haven't slept this much in years. Like I've been taking naps. I've been sleeping in. Been going to bed early. I guess I didn't realize how tired I really was.
Yeah,
So it's been a welcome break for sure. More than I realized that I needed it. So I'm glad for that. So
agreed.
um, all right. So with that, we're gonna dive into a topic we haven't talked about. Dan and I were just talking about it a couple minutes ago, deciding what we wanted to talk about for our podcast. Usually we have all our podcasts planned out, but as we looked at our list, we see that we've gone through a lot of the topics we've already wanted to discuss. So we're going to be brainstorming for new topics, and also we're working on a couple guests, getting them in here soon to tell their story. But with that, though, we wanted to talk a little bit about how to try to prevent yourself from falling back into the negative headspace that can happen sometimes with grief. So, um, Dan can probably talk about it with him. I know for me, it's easy to think you start making some progress, right? With your grief, you're able to cope better. You're focusing well. You're able to do your job, and then all of a sudden, bam! Out of nowhere, you don't even know why it happens. You get right back into that negative headspace. I know for me, a lot it was thinking about the hospital with Mason. Just out of nowhere, it just hit me, and trying to come up with good techniques to keep yourself in that positive headspace as much as possible while dealing with grief. So I'm gonna throw it to Dan first. Hear how he deals with that, and we can talk about some other things after that. Dan.
Yeah, I think the holiday season is an obvious example of times where it's very easy to regress and just become a complete mess. But on the daily basis, like Chris just said, it can hit out of nowhere. We've kind of talked about triggers on and off through a lot of the other episodes, but the weirdest things can trigger our grief, and we don't know what they are most a lot of the time. Um, Again, there's the obvious things. Like for me and Jameson, it's baseball season. We're getting ready to register for the coming little league season, and that's a trigger for me, especially with uh, the All Star season Jameson had right before we moved here, and just a few months before he passed. Um, Holidays are obvious. End of school year, like Jameson would have gone to sixth grade this year, and we didn't get that experience. Reese just had his 11th birthday, and Jameson, every birthday now for Reese is going to be a trigger because Jameson didn't hit that age. So there's things like that that are pretty predictable and easy to see coming, but um, for me, it's hard being a school teacher when I do read alouds with the kids. The Every book we pick, there's going to be something that triggers a memory of Jameson, and it's just hard, and it just hits you out of the blue. And I've learned to warn my kids that, hey, I don't know when it's coming, but it's coming. So when I have a breakdown in front of you, please don't laugh at me. And if I need to, I'll just tell you to take a 10-minute break, and just know that I'm having a memory. Um, so it's hard to deal with them because you just don't know when they're coming and where you're going to be and what you're going to be doing. But the one of the keys for me is, well, I guess two of the keys for me. First of all, my faith. I spend a lot of time just trying to refer back to the Bible and trusting in God, and that's really hard for me. My faith is struggling right now still, as I've talked about before. I'm still working on that, but I can always jump back into that and try to get some help. But the bigger thing for me is to be surrounded by a group of people that I can talk with. And that's the key that I have I have 3 or 4 people that I know I can call or write to anytime and say, "Hey, this is what's going on. I need help." And they'll be there to help. Whether it be simply just listening to me vent and get it off my chest. Some of them are pretty good counselors, even though they're not licensed counselors. Um, that's a good point I want to talk about later, I guess. Um, some people like Chris, I can call him, and he's experienced much of what I'm going through. So I think for me, the key to help with not falling backward too much is just finding that network of people that you can surround yourself with to help dig you out of the valleys when you get in there. And I don't think that that's a grief only thing. That's a life thing. We all need people that we can call for support, that we can talk to and vent to, and when we're hurt, they're going to carry us through that moment. It's not isolated to grief. So I think that's my main thing is just having that network of people and being able to rely on them.
Yeah, I think that network of people is so huge. It can't be understated at all. The way Dan talked about it is. I know I've said it before, and I'll say it again. The world is such a cruel place right now, and it's sad that it is the way it is. It's you turn on the news for a second, and it's just negative after negative. You throw your grief on top of it. You throw the stress of life on top of it, and just trying to survive in this world, and it can be really overwhelming. Excuse me. And having that group of people to help you plays such a huge role in just getting you through grief and through life nowadays. But with that, a good question is and I won't get into the details because this is Dan's story, but when you go through grief, people treat you a little differently, right? I know Dan and I have talked a little bit about this, not a lot, but so your support group that you had before might be a little different now once you start dealing through grief and the loss of a child or someone important to you. And it's really, who knows why some people just treat you differently. They think, who knows what they think, to be honest, why they treat you differently now that you're dealing with grief. But that support group might not be the same support group anymore because they kind of distance themselves a little bit. And so the next point is where do you go to find a new support group if that old support group isn't there for you? I think there's numerous actual grief support groups that you can go to where people understand. So if you're looking for something, look that up online. Grief support groups in your local area. Do a quick Google search, and I guarantee you a bunch of stuff will pop up, and you find what works for you. Like Dan said, religion for a lot of people helps. It helps me. I haven't struggled with my faith as much. I don't know why that is. I don't know. I think I don't have an answer to it. I still rely on my Catholic faith a lot, and it helps get me through it. I think in my mind alone, I feel like I talk to God a lot, and I don't want to lose that. I like that relationship that I have personally. So, if you're looking for the religious aspect, you find which religion works for you. There's lots of different religions, and I guarantee you that those religions will help you with your grief. There's lots of, at least on the Christian side, there's lots of grief support if you're looking for something like that. And if all else fails, you could volunteer, you could find different groups, just meet new friends, new people. And start to rebuild your support group the way you want it. The important thing is you find what works for you. Don't settle. Don't don't just pick any random person. You really want to make sure that they help you in those difficult times. So, Dan, how you feel about that? You think am I kind of rambling here? Or?
Set me up there, because I think I always start with yeah. And then you ask me that question at the end about rambling. I'm already saying yeah. No, you're not rambling. Um, you just hit on a good one, I think, volunteering. For me, I knew Jameson's Joy, like I've shared before, it hit on the day of Jameson's service really quickly that I wanted to do Jameson's Joy. And that for me is an outlet that, in a positive way, helps me keep going forward and help me deal with things. It's always hard. Every single thing is hard when you're grieving the loss of a child, and I assume grieving the loss of anyone. But for me, Jameson's Joy is a major factor in keeping me from regressing and going back into the really ugly places much more often. Because it gives me something it keeps me busy so that I'm not just sitting idly letting my mind wander to wherever. And it gives me a tremendous amount of joy when, again, every time I hear somebody did a random act of kindness in Jameson's name, or every time somebody talks to me about their loving the fitness course, or every time somebody gives a copy of Daddy Hug to a new dad, and I hear that there's a dad reading with a kid. Things like that are huge helps, because they for that moment, they present a positive light on what will always be the absolute worst thing of Erica in my life. So I think that's a big deal to find. Like Chris said, you got to find what works for you. You got to find a network of friends, just a couple that can carry you through. And that may be friends that have been around forever. It may be new people that you meet. Erica has found a few in various grief groups and I found Chris in a grief group. And without Chris, who knows where I would be if I didn't have the avenue I do talking with Chris about things. For some people, that is church. It may be work. It may be the lifelong friends you've had. It may be a family member. Who knows? Everybody's different. And you just got to find what works for you. But I encourage you, get involved in something, just to keep your mind occupied and keep your time filled with things that are hopefully going to let you feel better and keep you a little bit distracted from the constant grief that you're going through.
Yeah, I think that distraction it was really helpful for me in terms of, um, I think the first year I didn't have a lot of distractions. I couldn't get through it. But as I started the second year, I started getting to the point where I could allow the distractions. I could focus more on those distractions, right? Because if you're going to do it, you want to put your effort into things. So, and as I started doing more and more, it became easier and easier to do those distractions to keep my head straight. Between the podcast and volunteering to coach soccer again, and all these things are going to trigger little memories. Like I coached Mason the most for soccer, and the first couple practices were hard for me, but then it became a new normal, and I knew I could do it again, sort of thing. So there's going to be some bumps in the road as you start navigating what you want to do. You could do that volunteer work, and it could remind you of your loved one, and it could be hard at first. But then you know what? You're putting that effort in their memory, and it makes it worth its while for doing that for sure. So I like how Dan said distractions. My mental health provider actually said that to me one time. He's like, "Hey man, you got a lot of distractions going on. You got a lot of stuff going on between work and school, and coaching and the podcast and your family. And he's like, it seems like a lot of distractions. And I just said to him, kind of like how Dan just said, like, it's really kind of just keeping me more focused on those things instead of just thinking about the bad things. So finding that important thing to you, um, is super important. You need ideas, you just shoot me or Dan a message. I've been volunteering basically my whole adult life at numerous types of organizations. I know Dan has done the same, and plus Dan is in charge of Jameson's Joy. I know they help their community all the time, and I'm sure we can give you guys some ideas if you need anything, especially if you're looking for something specific tailored to you, that you like to do. Because when you do it, you want to like it. You want to enjoy your time. You don't want to feel like you're wasting your time, or, oh, I gotta go to this again or that again. No, that's not what you want. You want it to be worth your time and energy, to help you get in that right mindset that we're talking about.
Yeah, I yeah, I started. I'm volunteering, serving on the Transylvania Little League board, um, doing their social media and the website and all that end of things. Simply because it keeps me connected to Jameson, because I know I'd be at the fields if he were here. I would be at the fields, and since he's not here, we drive by the fields multiple times a week. And if I see kids out there, it breaks me every time that I go by those fields and see kids playing, whether it's organized or just with their parents. And I don't know that there's anything anybody can do about that. It is what it is. But I've decided that since I can't be there with my boy, at least I can serve and try to make it enjoyable for the other kids. And so I'm on that board, and again, it just, the opportunities are there. You just need to, I guess, know the right people to go talk to them about how to get involved in them. Because, I mean, it is there. You don't have to look very far to see an opportunity to help somebody, either on an individual level or in a specific organization, food pantry, um, whatever. I mean, and if it's not there, um, Eric and I, we gripe to each other a lot about, on our local pages. People are always, they should do this with whatever the empty building is in town, or whatever. The town should do this for our kids or whatever. It's like, why don't you do it? The opportunities are there. You just need to step up and fill a role. And if the opportunity isn't already in existence, create it. It's not that hard.
No, it's not hard at all. There's literally thousands of organizations like Jameson's Joy that will gladly take your free help. And you know what? It gives you such a sense of purpose. Like, you are helping that community. And you know what? You build those new friends,
Mm-hmm.
a new support group, uh, especially if it's something like Dan here. He's doing the little league, board, right? And it keeps you connected to that loved one that you lost. Like, that's keeping him close to Jameson, even though, you know can't be part of that organization anymore any other way, but it's keeping him close. So you really got to find out. You might have to dig deep and really think, like, hey, what did my loved one really like? What did they want? Um, okay, how can I honor them with this? How can I do something in their memory? Uh, and that's not saying you have to do it forever either. You can only do it just to get you through the hard times, but it keeps you out of that negative headspace, that nobody wants to be in, for sure. So another thing that I like to do for me personally, and I kind of fell off the wagon a little bit, but I'm slowly getting back on it, is exercise for real. Running, walking, biking, whatever. For some reason, for me, it helps clear my mind. It helps just kind of get out all the bad negative energy in my body, kind of burn all that off. And I noticed probably over the last month or two, I really kind of slacked and just kind of didn't do anything. And you know what? I could feel it. I could really feel it. So I just started getting back into running every day, and it's making a big difference already. So I'm not saying that's for everyone. You have to see what works for you. But if you haven't tried it, try just going for a walk, 10-minute walk around your block. And then do that for a couple days and see how you feel. See if it makes you feel better. And if it does, do something else or pick up the pace a little or go a little longer, something like that, and see how that makes you feel. That helps me personally.
I think personally, Chris, that is the worst idea you've ever suggested that people run. I prefer the sit on the couch and lift weights option of with my Coke and a bag of Fritos. But if that running thing works for you, then go for it.
It works for me. I understand it's not going to be for everyone, of course. So, but I wanted to make sure I threw that out there again because, I again am not any kind of doctor, but I know any doctor will probably say yes. If you do some physical exertion, it releases chemicals in your brain. It's going to make you feel better, and it works for me. So I want to throw that out there.
Yeah, I know Erica's. I mean, we live in the mountains of North Carolina, so it's real easy and we love it. But Erica, that's her outlet. She's always loved hiking, but since Jameson went to heaven, she's tried even harder to make those connections with people that can get her out hiking. Because it is, I mean, it works for me too. I love standing on top of a mountain and just actually sitting on top of a mountain and just appreciating the view and the peace and the quiet. It's just a beautiful, calm, quiet place where you can reflect on everything, but you're doing it in a place that's just absolutely gorgeous. And it's the exercise part of the hike going up and down. Not my favorite sometimes, but it's a necessary evil to get to the end product of that view that for me sitting on top of a mountain is one of those places that helps me just get away, not to a negative place, but to somewhere where I can just reflect on the positive things. So find what works for you.
Yeah, I would bet. I mean, I haven't done many. I am not a hiker. That is not something I enjoy. I've done it once or twice. I will agree that the top of the mountain view is gorgeous and I love it. But man, the air getting lighter and lighter as you're going up, not my favorite. I don't like that at all. So I give you guys a lot of props and credit for that because, whew, that's harder than a half marathon. I feel like sometimes.
We'll buy you an oxygen tank and you can just run up the mountain since you like
running.
running.
Yeah, I'm gonna need it. That's for sure. I promise you that.
Yeah.
So, so the negative headspace. What else can you do? If you guys have had anything that's worked for you, and you'd like for us to bring it up on the podcast, by all means, let us know, and we'll discuss it, or we'll bring you on as a guest, and you can tell us what's worked for you and how you've been able to deal with your grief. I really think, as I reflect now, I'm coming close to our 2-year mark, and I really think about from day one, from when Mason went to heaven to today, whatever day it is. It's just crazy to me to think I'm even at the point where I'm at now, because if you're listening to this and you've dealt with grief, you know the extreme sadness and shock that your body goes through those first days, weeks, months, to where I'm at now. It's just insane. And I owe it all to my support group, really. Dan, my family, and my friends that were there for me. And just using these little techniques to help keep me going, because I can see now going through it how easy it is to get in that negative mindset and stay there forever if you want to let it. It is very easy to stay there and let it gnaw away at your bones and make you a bitter, hateful person. Somebody who hates the world, hates everything that's happened. And for me, I couldn't let that happen. I couldn't let, because every time I do something, it's in Mason's honor when I do these things, right? It's a way to keep his memory going, and it's a way to for me to honor him, to be like, hey, son, I miss you, I love you, I'm doing this for you. And I wouldn't want to just be that bitter person sitting on the couch, miserable, not interacting with the world because something bad happened. Something bad happens to lots of people every single day. I'm not unique. Dan's not unique, right? We've, I, I know I've said it before. How shocked I was how many children pass away basically every single day. I had no idea. I mean, like, but you don't think about it, right? And now that I'm in this horrible club, um, there's two paths. You can live that misery forever, or you could try your best to get through it and make the world a little better, even though you're going through this worst thing. So for me, that's why there's no way I could go down that misery. So
I actually just had that conversation with a friend last Thursday about the number of children who pass away every single day. And you don't realize it until you're in that club. Like we hear the glamorized stories that the news covers, which is just a handful of kids, but when you're in these grief groups that we're in, or whatever the connection is, oh my god, there's kids passing away left and right every single day. And Erica got hit a couple weeks ago. One of her students, out of the blue, and we live in a real small town. We thought we knew of all the deaths that have happened in the recent years of kids, and Erica's student came up one day out of the blue, mentioned my brother passed away, and it's like, what? And Erica dug up the obituary, and it was in 2015. It was a 9-year-old boy, and we hadn't heard anything about that boy, which is pretty surprising in a small town where everybody's talking about everything. We This one we hadn't heard about, and when we found out it was a 9-year-old boy, that obviously hit close to home, and just the coincidence that Erica's teaching the little sister this year. Um, that that was just a really shocking bit of news that we got when we found that out. But yeah, and again, it's not just grief, although that's our focus here, obviously. It's anything. It's job loss, it's financial, it's cancer, it's whatever. People are hurting, and everybody, when you're hurting, I imagine, no matter what, cancer, whatever, you just feel like the whole world's crashing down on you. And people going through grief can certainly understand that part of things. But everybody, we need to find positive outlets, because I was not too long ago in that valley of bitterness, and I was pissed off at the world and everything about it. And I felt isolated, which made me then even more upset. And it just spiraled downward and downward and downward, and it kept going. And I pulled myself out of the support group I was in because I felt like I was dragging them down. I isolated myself at home, just everything, and none of it was healthy. And the thing that got me out of it was two of the guys in that group that I was in kept texting. And for a couple weeks or months, I was like, yeah, whatever, and just blew them off. But then after a little bit of time, they were able to draw me back in the group. And it didn't take too much longer after I returned to the group for me to at least get out of that valley of bitterness and just being pissed at the world. And I'm still broken, but I'm not broken and pissed. So that's a big improvement.
Yeah, that is amazing. I'm glad to hear that it's been working out better for you, Dan. And I think that's a good point that you point out that we're when Dan and I talk, we're not saying that we ever think you're going to be 100% better again. I know I'm never going to be 100%, and I think Dan is the same. Because there's a piece of literally there's a piece of my heart that is carved out when Mason went to heaven. It's just a piece of my heart is gone. You feel as a different person now, and but it's really just trying to navigate that new life, really, right? Just trying to figure out how you're going to get through it, and um, I'm really glad that that support group pulled you back in, Dan, and helped you out. And um, those connections with people are important. For me personally, I didn't even realize I was going through a sense of um, depression, really, because I felt like I was in autopilot, I guess. I was just kind of doing everything every single day, do this. And I really wasn't taking care of myself mentally. Like I was going to mental health and I was talking. Um, but I really just didn't, I thought all my anger and sadness was really towards just Mason passing. But as I kept digging deeper and deeper, going through mental health and going through therapy, and I kept digging up little things from my military past, experiences as being a firefighter, and I didn't realize how much all those things were really piling up on top of me that I didn't even realize were making me an angry or sad person. And uh, so once I was able to recognize and be like, wow, you know what? I have, a sense of depression because not just because Mason passed, but that was definitely the worst part of it, that really kind of made everything crumble down. I had probably depression before Mason even passed away, and I didn't even know it. Um, so for me, mental health has been really helpful in that aspect in identifying that sadness and learning how to cope with it and get through it. And it's, you know, probably in the last, probably since August or so, I think once I changed my job and went over to a different office here on base and started it's like a fresh start. It felt like a fresh start, to be honest. I've been feeling better. Mentally, I've been feeling better. Yes, I still have my moments where I'm sad and I miss Mason so much. But man, I. It's like day and night, to be honest, since I recognized that those issues from the past on top of losing Mason. So another aspect for you, we've talked about it 100 times. If you want to talk to a counselor, like a licensed counselor, about what you're going through, they can help guide you through your grief as well, because it does work, but you have to be willing to put the work into it, and you got to be brutally honest with your counselor, and sometimes that means you got to be brutally honest about yourself, right? I was probably, as I think about it now, maybe not hiding those things, but I don't know, maybe trying to be a macho guy. I really don't know, to be honest. I don't know why I didn't let those issues out before. Maybe I just thought they were normal. I think that's probably I just thought it was normal. But as I've gone through it now, and I realize and see it, it's so clear as day. It's crazy that I let it go on for so long. And ever since then, it's been a lot smoother sailing in that sense. So mental health counseling, definitely consider it if you need it.
I think honesty is the key thing there for me that you just said that everybody needs to find that person that you can say anything to. And I have a couple friends who I can, and they still, when I throw out whatever it is I throw out in my brutal honesty, it still takes them back, and they'll just laugh, and it's like, man, I love how honest you are. And it's like, yeah, I'm not going to hide it because it's not healthy to me, and it's not healthy to anybody else if I do. So again, that it is key, whether it's a friend, a professional, licensed person, whoever, you need to find those networks, those couple people that you can say anything to. And at the very least, they'll listen. And at the very best, they'll listen and know the right words to say to help, or the right person to connect you to based on what you say. And then there's also there's that a whole bunch of people who I still lie to every day because I don't trust them. I don't know them well enough. Um, Whatever the reason is, but I'm not opening up to you. I think at work, I think that's a great example of how everybody's such good friends at work, and it's like, how many times do we hang out outside of school, where we're friendly at work, but most of those relationships are not friendships. They're work relationships that you're friendly, you're professional, you enjoy each other, all that, but not going to open up to somebody in the hallway at school when we never once have gotten together outside of school. You need to find those people who are really there, thick and thin, that you feel comfortable opening up to.
Definitely, yes. I have the same exact thing. Like, listen, we're acquaintances at work. We're not we're not really friends, and that's okay. Like, there's nothing wrong with it. It's
Right.
just it's we're not at that point. So, um, but and I really want to stress again about honesty too, about being honest to yourself. Maybe you need to have that conversation with yourself, and that's kind of what I did. I was like, you know what? Why have you ever dealt with problem solving, Dan? The 5 whys. You heard of that before? Well, why? And then you keep digging deeper and deeper and deeper and deeper. And I really had to do that with myself. Like, well, why am I acting like this? Well, why do I feel like this? Well, why did that happen? How did that happen? And you keep digging deeper and deeper until you really find that root cause of what's making you so upset. And once you find that root cause, you can really attack it, right? To get you in
Right.
that better mental health um, point where you're feeling better about yourself. And that's really what I had to do, right? I needed my counselors to help me get to that point, to keep digging deeper and deeper. But I really, at the end, I had to be honest with myself and say, okay, well, I guess I never thought about it like that, but yeah, that is why I'm acting like this. And okay, well, now that I know that, how can I dig even deeper and deeper and deeper? And boy, it made such a difference for me. It just changed my whole life outlook, to be honest, going forward on how I want to deal with things. So that's worked for me. Again, you got to find what works for you, but um, for me, counseling with a therapist is really. I guess I got really lucky with. I go to two therapists, or I was going to two therapists. I was seeing a military therapist, and then I was seeing one off base as well. And both of them have really helped me to the point where I actually don't even know if I really. I'm going to stop seeing the military one, and I'll probably see the one off base at least until I move, and then after that, I think I'm going to be okay. Initially, I'm going to try and see how I do without going, and then I know if I need to go back, I can go back anytime. So,
Yep. I want to highlight too again, for those of you who feel like you've got everything going your way right now. That's awesome. Look for ways that you can carry people, because again, there are so many people who are hurting for whatever the reason, and again, you don't have to look far to find somebody that needs just an ear to listen to of why their day is so lousy. Um, Whatever it is. So if you're in a good spot, truly, honestly, in a good spot, and you've done what Chris just talked about of really looked at all areas of your life, and you really feel, no, life is really good for me right now. Look for that opportunity to be that person that can carry somebody else through their valley, because they're all around you, they need you, and you never know, in a month, 6 months, a year, 2 years, whatever, your perfect life can totally flip. And that's exactly what happened. Eric and I, we were living the perfect life. We moved to the mountains. We were close to her dad. We were able to do all the hiking and fishing and everything that we wanted to out here. Just the boys were happy. They had a yard to play in. Just everything about life was great. And then February 27th hit, and it flipped just like that. So, um, if you're in a good spot, see if there's somebody in your world that you can carry through their valley. And then hopefully they're there when you need it to get through your valley, because it's going to come sooner or later. It's going to come.
Yeah, we've talked about this. It's putting those deposits in, right? Making sure, if you are one of those people listening right now that haven't had to deal with grief and you just want to help someone else, and putting those deposits in early and often as you can, it just pays dividends. Because even if you don't deal with grief the way Dan and I have, like Dan said, something's going to happen where you're going to need that help. So helping others now so that they're willing to help you in the future, such an important role. I think Dan hit that spot on. That's super important. Can't be stressed enough.
So yeah, I guess that's all I got. I don't know of anywhere else. I think but yeah, it's so important for people to avoid those negative headspace areas as much as possible, and to know where you can go when you get into them, because they're gonna hit, they're gonna come.
Yes, I agree. Having that SOS plan already kind of written out, like, okay, here's what I'm going to do when I get to that negative headspace, um, and then enacting that plan to make sure that you don't stay in there. Because listen, even Dan and I, like, I still go to a negative headspace here and there. I'm sure Dan does as well. All we're saying is we've learned how to cope with it now, and how to use our resources and our networks to our advantage to make sure we don't stay there and make everybody around us miserable. And to be honest, I don't want to be miserable. I want to live a happy life. Um, so come up with that SOS plan, because you might need it. You don't know when, you don't know how it's going to happen though. Figuring that out early and often, so that you're ready to go, will help you in the long run. So, Dan, any final words?
Yeah, I just listening to Chris say SOS plan. I love that, because yeah, neither of us expected our lives to be shattered the way they were, and you can't predict it. So that is probably the number one thing message I want from Jameson's death, is for everybody to understand that life can be absolutely perfect, and it can change in a second, because on February 26th, 2019 at 7:30 p.m., we put Jameson to bed. We thought totally healthy. It had been a normal day. There were absolutely no signs. And an hour later, he was awake throwing up. And 9.5 hours later, he was dead. It happened that quickly. So enjoy what you've got now. Make the most of what you've got now. Help other people through what they're going through. And, but just, I guess, realize that, yeah, we don't know what's going on later today or tomorrow. So just, yeah, have a plan.
Have a plan indeed. So, with that, I think we're going to wrap this episode up. Thank you again for listening to Dan and I. Hopefully, we're helping you through something. Um, these are hard times, and we're here to help. This is something that Dan and I do that help us keep out of our negative uh, mind, right? That could happen. So we like doing this podcast to help ourselves, right? Because we get to talk about our feelings and emotions, but hopefully we're helping others as well, which is always a goal of both Dan and mine. So if you'd like to come on, or if you have any suggestions for future episodes, by all means, let us know. Dan and I are going to be reworking the list of topics, since we didn't realize until this morning that we've talked through all the topics we planned already. So we got to rework that list, but we're going to keep doing this. We really enjoy it. If you need to get a hold of us, you could always reach us online, info@jamesonsjoy.org. I got a Miles for Mason website is up. It's chris@milesformason.com for that email. And you could always hit us up on Facebook Messenger, and we're more than willing to help out any way we can. With that, though, thank you again for listening. Thank you for your time. We know your time is precious. Enjoy every second you can. And with that, we'll hear you guys next time on Father's Love, Healing Through Heartache.